we're not just gonna let you walk out of here.
Who's we, sucker?
Smith and Wesson and me.
Hi folks, and welcome back to another episode from ITG Airsoft. What we're going to be talking about today? Well, as you might have seen from the short, I've decided to do a little new series of videos on iconic arms and their airsoft personas. So what we're going to be talking about, basically guns that are considered to be a little bit kind of iconic in some way, shape or form, whether they be a classic movie gun like the one we're going to talk about today, or whether it just be something that's really quite well known and popular, and yeah, how that's represented in airsoft. As I said, all the weapons that featured here are airsoft replicas. There are no real weapons here whatsoever. These are all basically just really fancy toys. So hopefully that'll keep the YouTube people happy. So first episode, kicking it off, what we're talking about today, we are talking about the 44 Magnum. Yes, you can see 44 Magnum, Smith & Wesson. So start off talking about the real steel version, what it actually is, how it's become a little bit iconic, and how it's represented in airsoft. So first and foremost, 44 Magnum, what is it? Well, yes, this is a representation of a 44 Magnum. This will probably be quite an iconic or well-known looking kind of silhouette or style of revolver, but this is not exclusively a 44 Magnum. The 44 Magnum itself, for those who don't know, is in relation to the type of ammunition that it shoots. It has nothing to do with the actual style or model of handgun. It's entirely down to the round that it fires. 44, obviously 0.44 of an inch, and Magnum is basically the power of the round. So it's chambered in 0.44, so it's not limited to Magnum rounds. You could also use 44 special rounds in it. What's the difference between them? Basically, the power of the round. Magnum has got this as kind of synonymous with powerful, quite destructive kind of round. But basically, that's kind of what it is. It is a very powerful round. Slightly less powerful and considered more manageable in regards to actually sort of the recoil, so it would be the 44 special. And then obviously another types of rounds chambered in revolvers. You look at your 357 Magnum, you can get 357 special, 38 special. You don't get 38 Magnum as far as I'm aware, but 38 special. It's all just in relation to the power of the actual round. But this model of pistol itself, this is actually based on the Smith & Wesson, as you can see on the box. It's the Smith & Wesson Model 29 revolver. That is that style of a particular revolver. Obviously you do get other revolvers that are chambered in 44 Magnum. You get other variations of Smith & Wesson. Get that box to stand up. But this is probably the most iconic one. Why is it so? Well, because this is the Dirty Harry Magnum. That very famous movie from back in the early 70s, I believe it actually first came out. Well before my time, I will point out, but nevertheless still an iconic movie, still a favourite movie of mine. And it was probably one of the first Hollywood movies that really championed the sort of idea of the hero gun, as it were. To the extent that the 44 Magnum actually almost became like a character itself in the film. And that was carried in the subsequent movies by Clint Eastwood's character throughout the whole Dirty Harry series, and really kind of like brought about a massive kind of surge of interest in the 44 Magnum in the real world kind of shooting environment. Because if truth be told, the 44 Magnum was actually borderline kind of obsolete. Even when the film first came out, it was a ridiculously powerful round that had no real practicality to it. It was only really being used by a very kind of niche sporting environment for handgun hunting in the States. Was just told very big, very powerful, very unwieldy for anything practical terms wise. I mean, obviously the character in the movie is a police officer. Police use of a round like this was just very impractical. The recoil and the kick of the gun firing that size of round was quite unmanageable without a lot of practice and training with that type of round. So it wasn't really a particularly popular round, and so much so that Smith & Wesson, at the time of the movie actually being made, had actually stopped production of that particular type of revolver. So when the movie production actually approached them for some revolvers to use in the movie, they basically had to beg, borrow and steal to get a couple of pistols together in order for them to use in the movie, because the original movie script wanted a 4-inch barrel, nickel plated, but they couldn't get any. The only ones they could get was effectively factory standard 6.5-inch or 8 3/4-inch barrels with a blued finish, which is what ultimately ended up getting used in the movie. And it was only really the movie that kind of brought about a whole resurgence in the popularity of these, and everyone saw the movie and thought, I want one of them, and so the popularity of them went back on, and even to this day now, this is still quite a very popular, well-selling model of the Smith & Wesson line. But as I said, it is a massive, massive pistol. As you can kind of sort of like see, I've got pretty big hands myself. Here we go. There you go, 15cm ruler. So yeah, I feel like, let's say, fairly large hands. So, and even that, it's quite a big, hefty thing to be carrying. Comparison here, I've got a 1911, trusty 1911. So if you look at it in size comparison, it is a massive, massive revolver. So the actual practicalities of carrying it aren't great, to be honest with you. And as such, I have done a little bit of research and found out that apparently pretty much every time a new Dirty Harry movie came out, the popularity of these went through the roof, and then a couple of months later the popularity of these being sold second hand went through the roof, because everybody saw the movie, thought, I want to get me one of them, and then actually realised how cumbersome, how uncomfortable it can actually be to fire the 44 Magnum round, and just realised that as a practical kind of shooting pistol, it's not great. Lovely piece to have on the wall, nice little collector's piece, but the actual practical uses of it are pretty limited. So we now have the Airsoft version, and I have to say a lot of the traits of the real steel 44 Magnum do tend to bleed over into the Airsoft world. As I just pointed out, it's a big old handgun, okay? The grips on it are really quite big, so to actually get a good, solid, comfortable hold on it, you do need to have quite a big grip yourself. It's big, it's unwieldy, it's not massively heavy. It is a full metal pistol, but it's not totally uncomfortably heavy to carry. Although compare this to the likes of a Glock or something like that, then yeah, this is a big old chunk of metal. But then again, it's a revolver, so 6 shots. Now these ones are, oops, yeah, we'll get them back there. 6 cartridges, BB goes in the back, slots in there, and then individually loaded into the chamber. So yes, much like the real steel, you are limited to 6 shots, and it is quite a lengthy process to reload. Yes, there are speed loaders available. There are genuine umarex. Sorry, I should have pointed out this is made by umarex. There are umarex speed loaders available. Yeah, I don't know where that cartridge went. I'll find it later on. Yeah, so umarex do a speed loader, so you can load a full 6 rounds in a oneer. And also, as I've just recently discovered out on the market, the wonders that be Jaeger Precision has manufactured a fully, I think it's 3D printed plastic insert. So all 6 rounds together, BB's in the back, and not only does that obviously act as a speed loader, but it also helps to tame the FPS on this a little bit to make it site legal, because it is CO2 powered. So the FPS on these things, I think the actual testing chart that came with this when I bought it suggested that this was shooting well above 400 FPS. So it packs quite a punch, as you would expect from the old 44 Magnum. So yeah, so that little device from Jaeger Precision helps to bring down the FPS to make it site legal if you do want to take these on site and skirmish with them, which is something I'm really quite keen to do, because well, as I've pointed out in other kind of videos and all that sorts of stuff, everybody on the field is carrying a Glock or something like that. To rock up to an actual game wielding one of these, yeah, okay, you're limited to 6 shots, but I mean, come on. Start popping some rounds off of one of these in a skirmish game, come on, it doesn't get any cooler than that. So very keen to try out some of that. So back to this actual pistol itself. It is very, very nice. It's got, you can kind of see it's got a bit of a kind of weird finish to it, because it's not silver. Well, it just seems to depend on the sort of the light. It's very, very highly polished, as you can see, finished. But in this light, it looks almost sort of like black, or sort of like a blued finish. But if you take it out into natural light, take it outside of it, it's got almost a sort of nickel finish to it. It's very nice. Personally, I would have preferred if they'd gone for a proper blued finish. The box kind of looks a bit more blued, and I think, not 100% sure, they do these versions in 4.5mm steel BBs, and I think those ones possibly come with a more obvious black / blued finish to them, which would be more in keeping with the original kind of Dirty Harry pistol. But nevertheless, it's quite a good finish, although the only thing is, depending on obviously what you want to do with it, if you want to keep it as a bit of a showpiece, as you can see here just from me handling here, the fingerprint smudges appear everywhere, and you've got to give it a real good wipe down to clean that off. The one thing I would say about the finish of it that really, really bugs me is the grips. These are plastic, and then actually obviously they've got to be easy removable to get into the CO2 capsule. They do come with a nifty little feature that the Allen screw for tightening the CO2 capsule is actually built into the grip, so you don't need to worry about carrying separate Allen keys around for changing the CO2 bulbs. So that's quite a nice feature. But the finish on these is just, it's just really, really, really quite low quality. The plastic just feels really, really naff. I'm not going to lie about that. They do another model, the 656, not sure, another 44 Magnum variant from Smith & Wesson. They do it in 8 3/4 inch and 5 inch. It's got the double lugged barrel, and that actually comes with black sort of Pachmeyer style grips with kind of finger grooves and all that sort of stuff. They're much nicer grips, and they feel a lot better, but they don't sit particularly great with this model. The kind of brown wood effect grips do look better on this one, in my opinion, but the feel of these ones is pretty poor. I mean, I know there's limitations in regards to kind of plastic, so imitation wood made out of plastic. I know Tokyo Marui are doing wonderful things with the wood furniture, in particular their AK GBBs, but this is just very, very, very cheap plasticky finish. I dare say, I don't know, a bit of tooling, a bit of workmanship, you maybe could possibly hollow out a real wood set of grips to fit this. I don't know, but trying to source a set of Model 29 grips with a sort of walnut finish on them could be quite expensive. That could be a bit pricey to get a good set of wood grips on there, but it's probably quite doable. So yeah, so overall the appearance of the pistol is quite good, quite like it. It's nice, it's hefty, it's chunky, it does really hold that kind of Dirty Harry sort of 44 Magnum kind of presence. CO2 powered, and it is loud, very loud. Quite accurate in single action mode. Single action mode, if you're not familiar with the terminology, single action and double action is a revolver terminology. Single action is cock the hammer and fire it, and then double action is obviously pulling the trigger and it manually cocks back the hammer itself for firing. So that's single action and double action. So yeah, if you are looking at revolvers, it tends to be predominantly the more older style revolvers, sort of like Western cowboy style revolvers, that are predominantly single action only, which means you've got to cock the hammer every time you fire it. Anything beyond that, revolvers wise, tends to be double action. But obviously, when you're shooting, it's obviously a lot more accurately, because as you cock that back, then all you really need to do is get your sights lined up and pull the trigger. Nice soft squeeze on the trigger and that'll fire off the action. Whereas you're firing double action, you're pulling that heavy trigger back. Okay, so that's going to cause a little bit of barrel movement. So it doesn't tend to be as accurate to fire double action. But it's still quite an accurate pistol. I did some shooting earlier on. I'll put those videos into the main video and you can see for yourself. It's a fun thing to shoot. It's quite loud. I dare say it'd be quite fun on the skirmish field. So yeah, I will take it out next time I'm out gaming, fire a few shots through it, see what it's like, get the opinion of people on the receiving end of it. But I'll obviously need to probably look at getting some of those insert things I was talking about from Jaeger Precision, just to tame the FPS on it a little bit before I actually take it out to shoot. So, iconic arms in Airsoft. The Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum Model 29. It's good. This is a good representation of it. Personally, I would have preferred it if it was a more obvious black/blued finish. If those grips were better, I probably would have liked it more. From a style point of view, from an actual practical shooting point of view, it's very much in keeping with its real steel counterpart, to be honest with you. It's big, it's bulky, it's chunky. It's not going to break your wrist recoil wise, because it is an airsoft pistol at the end of the day, but you are limited to 6 shots unless you are to look at a speed loader or some other type of system. Then it is quite a lengthy process to reload it. I dare say out in the field under pressure you're potentially going to lose some of your shells. I mean, I was just doing a wee demonstration of how to load it there now, and I've dropped one on the floor and God knows how long it'll take me to find it. So there are limitations to it, but overall it's quite cool. I like it. There are other versions of this on the market. Tanaka do one, although that's, I think, predominantly got an ABS plastic frame to it. I have heard various different stories about the finish quality on it. The finish appearance initially is really good, but once you actually start using it, the finish tends to kind of wear away really quite easily. So mixed reviews on that one. But overall, it's a niche choice of weapon if you're wanting to use it for actual airsofting purposes. So how good is it, or how good will it be as an airsoft pistol? No, it's not going to be the best pistol in any way, shape or form, but you cannot deny the coolness of it. I mean, it's just amazing. It's iconic. It's an absolute beast. But I'll get out in game with it and have a wee look at it, and probably do a chapter 2 just to go from there. But like I said, I'm quite happy with it. I quite like the look of it. Umarex Smith & Wesson Model 29 6mm BB representation of the 44 Magnum. It's good. Now obviously we'll find opportunity to talk about the limitations of CO2 pistols. The thing with the revolvers particularly is, in any other sort of pistol, into the Browning for example, all your gas and your BBs and all that are stored in the magazine. So once you take the magazine out, that's fine. That's not going to cause any issues. You can do a lot of aiming, practicing dry fire and all that sort of stuff with that whilst the magazine's out. No bother at all. Whereas with the CO2, once that bulb is in, every time you pull that trigger, you're going to be firing off gas. And if you take that bulb out prior to being completely empty, that's just going to empty and you're going to lose all the gas in there. So that's a bit of a pain, I have to say, when it comes to CO2 powered revolvers, because that bulb, if I wanted to, I don't know, do a bit of dry fire and practice or something like that, I'd either have to fire it empty but use up gas while I'm firing it, or take that bulb out and lose whatever gas is left in there, which can be quite costly. I mean, you can usually get bulk deals where you only pay a couple of quid per cylinder, but it's quite annoying that you can't take the cylinder out and then put it back in and all that sorts of stuff. So that's something to be wary of with the CO2 pistols. That is quite a bit of a drawback on them. But yeah, so iconic arms in Airsoft, the Dirty Harry 44 Magnum. It's good. I like it. Give it a shot. We'll continue on with this series. I'll look at a couple of other things. I'm going to do one on the Browning High Power, the Belgian-made British classic. I'll also be doing another video on the 1911, another classic, and maybe just to kind of push the boat out. Seeing as I'm predominantly doing pistols, I'll maybe venture into the world of the M4, everyone's favourite airsoft rifle. But for now, 44 Magnum, most powerful handgun in the world. Well, it had its day. It was at the time of the film, kind of, not so much now, but nevertheless, a good pistol. I like it. It's very cool. Thanks very much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye bye.